Greetings, travelers. My name is Nick Murphy.
And my name is Satchell Drakes.
And welcome to the Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast. We're going to take you on interstellar adventure through the darkest corners of your mind to unlock your hidden passion for cinema.
That was somewhere in between going into hyperlight speed and the Caribbean club horn.
It was a nice mix of both. I liked it.
How was your week, man, dude? How was your Super Bowl and all that? Sports
good,
ball?
Man. Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, I know. No, that's how I respond to it. It's like it happened, and I was there this time.
Yeah, right. It was. I mean, I've been watching it for the past few years. I mean, I know everybody says it, but like I like watching the commercials. It's like interesting, and it's nice to be like, it's nice to be part of pop culture and the collective.
Yeah,
for a second, you know.
I totally agree. For me, it's like it's seeing. This might even. It's seeing what 15. I think it's like how much million? It's like millions of dollars to get a spot.
Oh, dude, yeah.
For those commercials. I think I remember hearing like $13 million or something like that. It's kind of cool seeing what $13 million buys. You know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a win.
Yeah, and like it's not always like the pinnacle of advertising, but you know, it's like they're spending hard-earned money, and you really get a sense of like what good advertising is a lot of times. You know, like
definitely.
I just remember watching like a lot of the commercials and being like, "Oh, this is a really good commercial." There was
your favorite?
a lot of, dude. Well, there was like a good chunk of commercials that were like targeted at dads, and like as being like a new father, I was just like, oh my God, that's so great. Like I was like tearing up at this one. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for that.
Wait, can we agree that Nationwide was the biggest bummer
man
ever?
It really was, man. Like I get it. Like I get what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But like
for me, I was like, dude, time and place.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is like not the time for that at all. Like, you know, you don't want to see like the bucking Bronco Clydesdales and the dog and then see that. It's just like, oh man, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
I like the Nationwide. They were like, you know what we're gonna do? Forget these funny insurance commercials. We're going deep. You know what I mean? Like every commercial is like a comedy.
Yeah, they usually have funny
commercial.
ones. Now is the time for them to nail it.
Yeah,
I like their writing on the funny ones.
Yeah, exactly, man. But no, it was good. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, dude. My favorite commercial was the Kickstart one, the Mountain Dew energy drink.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, that was really good.
Dancing to that, like I don't know, it was like a Little Johnny turned down for what kind of track. I just started bugging out. I thought that was amazing. I was like, dude, I love commercials now.
I know.
It's almost inevitable that if you want to have a successful like comical commercial, you have to have like a sense for that internet humor. You know,
right?
Like that like random houseness and everything.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah, exactly. There was a really nice throwback to the internet. There was people from the Today Show. I want to say Brian Gumbel, maybe Brian Gumbel.
Okay.
Well, anyway, they showed this clip of them from like the '90s, and they put like the @ symbol for like email.
Oh yeah, that was the best. Do you remember
Yeah.
You remember that video, like when it was just like floating around the internet, like could you believe how dumb we were back then?
Yeah, exactly. And then they were in the car doing that. Yeah, that was good. It was good.
That was cool. I really like
that. All right, so this week we're going to be discussing Inception, and I guess like the big question that I kind of posed to you is this movie still a mind trip? You know what I mean? Like we're almost 5 years out from this movie. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it still crazy? Is it still super heady? I guess is the question that we're going to answer this episode.
It's a good question.
All right, so here's like some quick basic facts about the film. Written and directed by Christopher Nolan, who's famous for The Dark Knight and
The Man, the Legend,
Interstellar. Now, cinematography by Wally Pfizer.
Now was he involved at all in Man of Steel? Because I remember seeing his name tossed around in it, and then
I think he's a producer on Man of Steel.
That's what that is. Okay.
Yeah, I think because DC was trying to like operate in like they were all these DC movies now are going to be in the same world kind of thing.
Right.
But I think they have a new Batman. They have Ben Affleck as the new Batman.
That's right. That's right.
So that's going to be nuts.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually really excited about that. So Inception stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Ellen Page, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marie Cotillard, Ken Watanabe, Tom Hardy, and my good friend Cillian Murphy. So this is like a super big budget movie. The budget of $160 million. And
insane.
At the box office, ranked in $825 million. That's insane.
Oh my gosh, that's what a juggernaut. So good.
That's nuts. So Satchell, what give like our audience, for the uninitiated, like if they haven't seen the movie, they should probably watch it ahead of time. They should probably be familiar with, because the
very
movie,
true.
We're going to spoil
spoilers
a lot of
up the wazoo.
Yeah, but so give us like a little rundown of like what the movie's about. What's the plot of the movie?
Sure. Okay. There's a small team, Dom, Arthur, and another guy.
And in the beginning, it's just another guy.
Yeah, but for all intents and purposes, Dom and Arthur's kind of steal the show. And they're essentially this team that infiltrate people's minds by way of their dreams to extract information. So
steal secrets and
yeah, any kind of confidential information. What I'm guessing is that it's sort of like they're like available for hire, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like when you first see them, they're kind of like debriefing Ken Watanabe.
Saito.
Yeah, as to what the services they offer for their operation. That's a crazy operation. I would love to see their business filings, and I guess it's all like illicit, right? It's got to be like...
Yeah, it's illicit because they're using illegal military grade equipment, like unfinished military grade equipment to infiltrate people's minds. And in the movie, it kind of starts off they're in Saito's mind to get information, and then you find out that it's just a test so that Saito can get a good understanding of if they would be capable of performing what is called Inception, which is the inverse of what they're familiar with doing. Rather than extracting sensitive information from a person inside their subconscious while their guard is down, instead it's the idea of planting information into somebody's head while their guard is down, so that when they wake up, they're essentially under your control. Not control like a robot, but they do the thing that you're meticulously plotting for them to do.
Right. And they set up that Inception is extremely difficult because the mind is very capable of
drawing the origin.
Right, exactly. So
right.
And so it has to come like naturally if it's to come to total fruition. Otherwise it just kind of gets dismissed in your mind.
Right. You have to sort of it's kind of like what a filmmaker does, right?
Yeah.
Right? Where you have to instead of you directly telling the audience what you want them to feel, you have to create an experience that makes them think what you want them to think. And then when they believe that idea was their idea, you have their success or whatever.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I've read a couple things talking about this movie about how, the dream allegory is obvious in the movie. I've heard people draw parallels to like creativity and stuff, but definitely I feel like, and it could just be because of the way I think, but like the film comparison I feel is like very, very prominent in this movie. And that's something that I was just like, oh yes, it's exactly like making a movie. You put it perfectly, is you have to like trick them to think that they felt this thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it like on like a larger scale. So like, I'm wondering if like we see these different levels, and it's almost like different levels of filmmaking, because like you can play with time, and Christopher Nolan plays with time so well. But when you're making a movie, you're playing with time all over the place. You're like cutting to different things. You're putting things together to make the audience feel something that wasn't originally there. And I wonder if like the last moment of the film and like when it cuts to black is like Christopher Nolan's like kick to the audience. You know what I mean?
Huh. That's cool. I never thought about that.
Like you're like, okay, well the dream's over. Wake up. You know?
Yeah,
like when it cuts to black, it's just
that's
like,
pretty cool. I like that.
I don't know. I was just thinking about it as like I'm watching like the top spin, and I was like, oh, there's the kick right there.
That would be that's
and you come out of it, yeah. So I want to talk about real quick that first scene in the movie with Saito and stuff. I feel like that sequence does a very good job of setting up the rules of the film.
So
basically,
glad we're getting to this part. Yes, I would love to dive into how beautiful they explain all the rules are.
Yeah, and I think as an audience member, you set it up really quickly. They establish this one reality. You're like, okay, we're in this this kind of party at Saito's, and suddenly something weird happens. I'm trying to remember what the first inclination that like this is not right.
It's the moment that his that Mal comes into the scene, and she's not supposed to be there.
Exactly. But then when did they cut to the apartment? So from this first level of the party, there's this second level of the apartment with like an uprising happening outside.
Oh, like in the room in the other country?
Yeah.
What happens is that Saito realizes that he's currently dreaming, or he knew the whole while. You find out later he knew the whole while, and he kind of reveals it to Dom.
Right.
And what he does is Saito shoots Arthur in the foot. Right. And then he goes on the exposition saying that, hey, even though this is a dream, he can still feel the pain. So then Dom kills Arthur, so that he wakes up right away. Yes. And then he starts preparing the kick to pull Dom up.
Right. That's right. So that's like the second level, I guess, right? Of this whole thing. And then
they basic in the beginning. Just one level.
Exactly. Yeah, just one level, right? So then from there, so we see in that first level, we start to feel like we start to hear these like rumblings and the entire kind of like party atmosphere like shakes.
Right.
And then we cut to the apartment level.
Crazy VFX stuff.
Yeah, that's where
breaking. What's happening? Oh my gosh, what is this?
And that's where like the uprising's happening. So they set up like early on that like, okay, whatever the kind of like top level is happening, the lower levels kind of feel that all the way down, I guess. And then we see that come to total fruition with like the water, kind of coming into the dream and then waking up into the second level.
You mean when he gets kicked into the bathtub?
Right, when he gets kicked into the bathtub.
Okay.
Yeah. So then from there, we realize that part isn't the only part of the dream. There's another level to this, and that they're all on a train, and some of these explosions that are happening are actually caused by the train kind of moving back and forth.
Right. Oh, actually, I never realized that. That's the parallel. The rumbling in the room in the first dream, not the deepest dream, but I guess it's really the second dream then. No, it's the first dream. It's not the level in, it's the level in between. The first dream is from people running in the streets, but what it's supposed to simulate is the train on the tracks.
I guess so. I think that's what I took from it. I think that's the case.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's just a guess. Yeah, it's just a guess.
And I think when we're talking about this movie, there's going to be a lot of that. Like,
you're absolutely right. I think that's
but
what
it could be wrong, you know?
And then they jump to the train level when Saito wakes up, and then they just like, all right, screw it. You're not in your dream anymore. I'm essentially robbing you from gunpoint. Tell us what you know.
Right.
And his head is on the carpet, and he's like, this isn't my carpet.
Right. And that's when it all kind of starts to fall apart. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it's interesting, man. It's I think it's a great concept.
Me too.
These kind of like this dream kind of espionage that's happening. And one thing that I really like is Christopher Nolan always has these great usage of time throughout all of his movies, and like for this movie, the time, we see these like flashbacks that happen that like could be actual flashbacks of memories. Are they dreams? And there's a lot of that's going to go on throughout the movie. That's like, what's real, what's a dream, and how do you differentiate between the two? But one thing that I really like about this movie, and I feel like Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker brings his own kind of style to whatever kind of genre he works in. So I feel like each one of his films is like a different genre that he puts his kind of like twist on a little bit.
Definitely. And that's definitely an intentional thing. From what I understand, Nolan actually, in 2002, he spent like 10 years on this script, more than 10 years on the script. But the first 10 years, he wrote like an 80-page treatment about a movie. Like it was essentially the origins of Inception. It was supposed to be like about dream stealers. Okay. And it was supposed to be a horror film where there's this team of people who steal dreams from other people to get information, and it was supposed to be inspired by lucid dreaming. And he pitched that idea to Warner Brothers, and I think either they pushed back or like he prematurely pulled out and said like, actually, I don't think I have enough experience working on like big budget films. I'd like to like work on big budget films first and then come back to it. So then that's when he worked on Batman Begins and and a couple of other things before coming back to it. And one of the biggest things that at least that's documented was that he strayed away from making it a horror film because he realized that if it was going to be a film about dream stealers in the horror setting, there would just be too many impersonal cliche things that he would need to do in order for it to work out. Like just working within the genre, he just felt like the genre lends itself to a lot of like impersonal treatments. In order to like between the characters in order to focus on the plot, which I can agree with. Like there are a lot of horror films that really the characters are kind of paper thin, but what's important is the scary part. And I like that
they're almost not even like characters, they're just kind of like archetypes or like
they're just like pieces that get played with by someone who's possessed or the ghost or the monster or whatever. And I like that instead it's this heist thing, and
I wanted to bring up go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, dude.
I just want to bring up, we had a couple, we posed some questions to our travelers, and some people had some comments about that. So
hey, travelers.
Yeah, what up, travelers? So Jubtron said that he never really liked Inception, although he was lukewarm about it, and at this point, and then when it was released, he absolutely hated it. Based on everything I had heard, I'm quoting him now, I walked in expecting a really smart, creative movie about dreamscapes and felt betrayed when I figured out it was basically James Bond. Right? So I understand that, and someone else on our subreddit said that as well. Castulu echoed the statement, saying, I understood well enough, so it was easy to follow the plot, but I never really enjoyed the movie. My biggest issue is how much wasted potential I think it was. It was a movie about dreams, and I think, oh wow, anything can happen, but in that case, it winds up being a bunch of crazy stuff in a dream, and then turns into a heist movie, and I think what we were saying about Christopher Nolan is he like brings this dynamic to like, hey, I could do a psychological movie about dreams, and we've seen that before. We've seen the Eternal Sunshine, we've seen like the Charlie Kaufman type movies and stuff, but like I feel like for him to take those ideas and those thoughts and apply that to like a heist movie, to like an action movie, I feel like that kind of brings it to like a new level. It's not just like
it's not this hyper existential, like putting that on a mantle and just looking at it, but it's bringing it into a context that a lot of people can wrap their minds around, which for some people I can understand them saying, well, that's antithetical to art. It's not about it's not about it being accessible to as many people as possible. But in my head, and this isn't necessarily an argument, in my head, what made Inception such a success for me is that this world, whether you lean on the fact that a lot of it, there were a lot of heist scenes or not, the world that they created was systematically complex. Right. Yet it was created to be understood by the masses, and which makes sense because in order to pull something off with the caliber of effects and thought that were put into it, you need a certain amount of like tangible investment to to get to achieve something like that in some cases. And it incorporates the spectacle elements that many look for in like an epic, but it's all wrapped around something incredibly personal, like dreams. I think it's such a genius idea to choose dreams, like how dreams operate, like the way that they operate. It always seems crazy to everyone, and we never talk about it. But whenever you get into like that late night conversation, like I always feel like every conversation with a girlfriend, like the late night ones where you're about to pass out, it always ends up going to like, oh yeah, but like when you're dreaming, like you wake up and you're still in the dream and you're like, oh yeah, I can't believe that. And it's like, it's this incredibly personal thing that no one ever talks about with each other. Right. But when you do, there are all these oddities and like anomalies that we all relate to. Right. And so through that can be very like emotionally gripping. And I love the moments where they were like, hey, when you do this in a dream, well, in the movie, we take advantage of that to do this thing with their mind. And it's like, whoa, that's so cool and cerebral and redemptive still. Like making something that's gripping and personable but still relatable is what every creator wants. Like that's what everyone wants,
Exactly.
So,
and I feel like he has like two really good touchstones in the movie. It's like we all dream kind of similarly, and we all have those experiences dreaming. So it's like, oh, I can relate to that. I'm familiar with that. And then on top of that, it's like, I'm going to make a movie about people who steal these intangible things. Like I steal ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. The only way to kind of represent that, like, what do we think of when we in the movies when people steal things? Like, oh, people who are thieves, they're heists. We're Ocean's 11. It's Ocean 11 in dreams. And it's two touchstones that work perfectly, by themselves, and then together, I for me anyway, I felt like that's where it was very successful. It was kind of like these two things that everyone's familiar with put together and be like, oh yeah, I get it now. You don't need to explain the rules to me a million times, but I mean they do in the movie, but it's still like it still works on like a way that it should. Like from that first scene, you're already just like, oh, okay, I think I understand how this works without the chalkboard scene of like, this is how a dream works.
Right.
Oh man.
And I'm so glad that they didn't do that. Like so here's the thing about for anyone who is for anyone who has a hard time feeling like Inception is deep at face value, my argument would be that Inception is deep in the way that it conveys how the world works. Because in order to do that in a way that doesn't seem obvious, or that, okay, audience, sit down, here is how everything works, it requires a lot of thought. And it all started with it all started with the beginning of the movie. So the extraction of Saito doesn't work because we mentioned already he realizes that the carpet isn't his. Right. And they blame that on their original architect, who's in the movie for like 5 minutes because he gets dragged away and seemingly killed for screwing up. Right. And the team doesn't seem too broken up about it because they're like, well, you built a world that sucked. That wasn't the real world.
Exactly.
So they lose their original architect, and what I don't think many people realize was that was the setup to teach the audience how this entire universe works. So because they lose them, Dom has to pull on Ellen Page.
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page. Everyone just knows it's Ellen Page. Yeah. Dom has to pull on Ellen Page. And he has to teach her how to be a proper architect, right? So by doing this, they allow the protagonist to go into full detail about how worlds, layers, and dreams operate. Right. And their conversation, and so that's one section, right, where he's just talking with her. Dom pulls Ellen Page into his dream. He essentially gives her a demo, and he's giving the audience a demo at the same time. But it doesn't feel like a lecture, right? And then that's just one part. And then every conversation that they have with Saito throughout the film is them explaining exactly how they use the world that they've created, that they're teaching Ellen Page to their advantage. They teach Saito the operations and also teach the audience their operations. Right. It's like over tutorialization is one of the most difficult things to avoid, especially if you have like a really complex world. And it's usually the biggest difference between student films and Tribeca Film Festival entries.
Sure. Yeah.
A big part of storytelling is conveying information that needs to be remembered for the duration of the film,
right,
with a sense of weight and urgency that doesn't make the delivery seem obvious. And the perfect example that maybe people don't understand, I don't know if you've ever watched anime, but
I've seen one or two.
Right. I haven't seen too much anime, but is that a joke?
I've only seen like 2 anime.
Okay,
movies.
yeah, it's totally fine. I think I've seen like 4. Ooh, one of them is Inuyasha.
Okay,
and it is the perfect example of conveyance gone wrong.
Okay.
Most anime is conveyance gone wrong. And I think it's just because it's for kids. So they just like, you have to be painstakingly obvious in everything, but it's like quick rundown.
Right.
Main character, Kagome. She's this girl. She has this pearl inside of her that holds the key to the universe.
Okay.
A demon comes out of nowhere, bites her in her side to pull out the freaking jewel.
Okay.
She rips out her side. Kagome's flying in the air, and she says to her, "Oh my gosh, did she just bite into me? That jewel has been residing inside of me the whole time. I wonder what kind of powers it holds."
Yeah.
Horrible, right?
Right.
What I would be thinking is, ouch, right?
Right, exactly.
On the other end, we have good conveyance, which is like Harry Potter, where throughout the duration of Harry Potter, we learn new things through Hermione. Like, Hermione is the key to us learning new things because, and the way that they use her is that they paint her as the bookworm archetype, right? So she's the filthy mudblood who overcompensates for the fact that overcompensates for the fact that she comes from a human family by reading up on everything. So whenever something bad happens, Harry and Ron are like, "What's happening?" And then Hermione's like, "Well, actually, tutorial." And it doesn't feel
But she does
painful.
it in an interesting way. She does it in a way like, "Hey, you should know this. You don't know."
Right. Yeah.
X?
Yeah.
And then it, like, automatically you're like, oh yeah. Well, I know it now. Yeah, totally. I've known it the whole time.
Yeah. So I always thought that was interesting. Yeah.
But
that's my tirade on Inception is complex, because I could never do something like that.
No, but I think that's what makes this movie something unique is that it has. I'm trying to say this without making it sound like an Inception joke, but like, it has a deeper layer. Like, it has this deeper layer to it, other than just the surface of it. It doesn't just, it's like, okay, yeah, they got guns, and in the guy's mind they have guns and stuff, but like, that's just something for the audience to like grasp onto, to like understand defense and attack and make it interesting and engaging. But like, the ideas behind that, I think, is what makes this movie interesting. I had this fear watching the movie when it was done in the theater, and I was like, oh shit, I hope that other action movies don't steal this and try to make this a thing, because like, they play with reality in such interesting ways. I hope that it just doesn't become a thing. I hope that like the way like wire work became a thing, I hope that like Inception action doesn't become a thing. You know what I mean?
What's wire work? Oh, you mean like in The Matrix?
Yeah, like Crouching Tiger, and then The Matrix. And then everybody did wire work, and Charlie's Angels did wire work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I don't know how they would do it. I just had this like paranoid fear that we were just going to turn into that. Because like, after The Matrix, there was like a lot of like Matrix-y things. Yeah.
A lot of bullet time.
Right, exactly. And like, I mean, we've seen a little bit, like, there's a lot of like super slow-mo stuff that is cool. Cool, and it like works in this, but like, you don't want it to become a thing. That was just my like paranoid filmmaking fear.
Was there, did anyone ever kind of make a blatant bite of Inception? I'm wondering now. It seems like it could happen. I don't know.
Think too much. I mean, there have been like, I can't really say that there have been like too many like into that kind of like world where like where you're messing with reality,
right?
Yeah, I guess not. Well, that's good.
I guess that's really good. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the industry. I mean, after we got a lot of like space films that came out recently. After the one with what's her face, who usually picks bad movies. Forgot.
Gravity with
Gravity.
Yeah. You're right. But even too like Christopher Nolan's like his Interstellar, I felt it wasn't like a regular space movie. It was
I still
something
have to
different.
Watch that. I keep hearing
it's great.
I keep hearing it's like a hybrid of things. I need to watch that and Gone Girl. Those were two things I slept on.
I watched Gone Girl recently. It was very, very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right, cool.
Come over. We'll watch Gone Girl.
Yeah,
and then,
I'll watch that and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and I think in a few weeks, Interstellar comes over. Come over. We'll watch it.
Oh, yes. Let's do that.
But yeah, I feel like Interstellar could have just easily just been a space movie, but Christopher Nolan puts his spin on it and it becomes something more, and like I feel like even like Batman Begins was like that. It was like a superhero movie, but like a superhero movie that redefined and rewrote our concept of what a superhero movie is,
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, not to be like all up on Christopher Nolan, but I think he probably is one of the most talented filmmakers of our time.
I totally agree.
I mean, you watch something like Memento, and it's like, I've seen a mystery whodunit before, and then Christopher Nolan puts his spin on it. It's like, wow, I've never seen one like that before.
Yeah. That alone in my head like makes me think, all right, this guy knows how to this guy has the balls to weave around things that would normally have a ton of plot holes, right?
Right.
Like to be able to like work with such a complex timeline like that in my head is like.
And I think he has a lot of respect for the audience, which is nice.
Definitely.
He has the ability to like challenge them, but not to the point where they're lost. I can understand being lost at Memento or maybe even parts of this movie of just like, oh, it's just too big for me to think about. But like, I think he puts it in a way, and we were saying with that first scene, kind of sets up all the rules and sets up on some level you can understand what's happening, even if it's just, maybe you don't have to understand the science of it, and which is nice. Yeah. He doesn't go into the science of it like at all. You know what I mean? Like
what do you mean?
The briefcase works because the briefcase works. We don't need to like understand the mechanical workings of the briefcase and how it chooses the dreamer and know what I mean? Puts everybody under and links everybody. It just the briefcase is the thing that we hook up to.
Yeah. You're
and
right.
It works.
You're right.
This is the rule.
The only time they explain is, do you feel, like it's always about, that those moments where you X,
right?
And I love that. That's the thing that connects everybody. Like
exactly
the subjective thing.
Yeah, and it's not like we have the midi-chlorians all set up to
right.
Yeah. It just works, man. It just works, and it lets us have a nice little thrill ride right here. Yeah, which is nice, man. Well, why don't we take a break, and we will be back with more of the Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Twitter. The conversation is not over. We will be back next week to cover part 2 of Inception, and after that we'll be covering Eternal Sunshine. So if that's a film that you've watched that you have strong feelings about, or if there are any particular topics that you'd like us to discuss on the show, feel free to drop a line on our subreddit, r/Cinephilia Anonymous. Let us know how you feel or anything you'd like us to discuss, and we will definitely check it out, and we will definitely discuss it. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been great. The community's been growing. We've been enjoying it a great deal. Take care.